What's going on, world? AJ here, and today on the show, happy Zelda Month. Yeah, it's November. November in the gaming community, thanks to a YouTuber known as Peanut Butter Gamer, started Zelda Month many years ago. I think it was during the build up to Skyward Sword. He dedicated the month of November as Zelda Month. And so here we are today, years later. It's part of the gaming phenomenon now that every November is Zelda Month. Now, I had plans earlier this year to do something like this, but I totally forgot. So we're going to wing it this month, and we're going to do the next couple of videos dedicated to the series I love, The Legend of Zelda. All right, so sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode. This episode, we're just basically going to talk about how I became a Zelda fan. So sit back, relax, grab yourself a cup of coffee. Hey, some call me Johnny. Yeah, YouTuber star I like to watch, and enjoy this episode. Yeah, that's a lot of games, for sure, and this is not including what I have downloaded digitally. I mean, you got your Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition. It's not canon to the series. Of course, the new one coming out, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, that takes place 100 years before Breath of the Wild. That's canon, all right? There's your Majora's Mask right here. You got your Link Between Worlds right here. You've got your Twilight Princess, which we'll get into in just a bit. And Skyward Sword, your Link's Awakening remastered for the Nintendo Switch. Of course, there's the Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time. I've tried Oracle of Seasons. Not a fan of that one, to be honest. I've played the NES original, and I got stuck. That's a hard piece of gaming right there. And, of course, Zelda 2, The Adventures of Link. That one's hard as well. I can't even get through the first area of that one. But Legend of Zelda, what made me a fan? What pulled me into this? Well, I gotta thank a friend of mine, James Nichols, brought me into the series. And he owned the copy of Ocarina of Time. I watched him play it. I was like, this looks interesting. Borrowed it from him for a couple weeks, played it, and I was like, I loved it. I was like, this is a fun game. I got stuck at Jabu Jabu, the big giant fish here inside of there, because that boss is atrocious. I'm not intimidated by him anymore. I can beat that boss. Whatever that big old jellyfish thing was that electrocutes you constantly. Man, I died many times trying to fight that boss. But Ocarina of Time was the first game I played in the Zelda series. And so, looking back at that game, for a moment here, the vast world of Hyrule is what hooked me into it. Just, the places you could explore, the different races that you visit, like the Gorons, the Zoras, the Kokoris, these different areas, these temples that you walk into. I particularly love the Temple of Time, even though it's not really a dungeon type thing. That doesn't come until Twilight Princess, where you actually play it. Originally, though, the Temple of Time was supposed to be a dungeon, from what I've read in books and online. Of course, I got the Hyrule Historia sitting right here beside me, down here, which kind of gives you a good description of all the games. But your main antagonist is, of course, Ganondorf. Everybody knows it as Ganon, but this is the Garuda version of him. He, according to the legends, of course, only one male is born in the entire Garuda race. Pretty much the Garuda is all female. It's weird. So I don't understand that aspect of it. And of course, when you play Breath of the Wild, you see more of that type of a world, because the only way you can get into the city, the Garuda city, is Link has to cross-dress. I mean, he has to disguise himself as a female just to get into the city. Because I don't know what the deal is, but that's just how that place rolls. But in order to, produce, they do have to venture out of the city, and find male companions. All right. And so, of course, they play that and they show a little bit of that in Breath of the Wild. But we're going back to Ocarina of Time here. But that was just a weird part of it I saw with Ocarina. But basically, you play as this young kid named Link who gets this fairy, and you're being summoned by the Deku Tree. The Deku Tree basically protects the Kokiri Forest. Basically, he pretty much says that he's dying. He's got something inside. He's been cursed, So Link ventures into the tree. He learns about what's going on. He defeats the boss, which is a giant spider that was in this tree. But the Deku Tree dies, and then you're off to save the world. You find Princess Zelda, and from there, you go venture to the Gorons. You go to the Dodongo Caverns. You go to Jabu Jabu, inside Jabu Jabu's belly, to deal with that princess of the Zoras, who, it's just awful. Just you have to carry her around. She whines. Of course, and later, whenever you travel into time, you're basically indebted to her. She pretty much tries to become your girlfriend, and it's weird. But yeah, but Ocarina of Time is one of those games that, man, it revolutionized 3D Zelda games. It set the bar, it set the standard for the Zelda series for the future. Just kind of like how A Link to the Past really redefined 2D Zelda playing. You got that overhead style. Now, I've played A Link to the Past as an adult. I enjoyed it. I haven't beaten it, but I enjoyed it. I got stuck at that moth thing in the Lost Woods with all the skulls. I couldn't beat it. I just gave up eventually. Just the treads on the floor. You got spikes shooting all over the place. It's a mess. It was definitely a hard dungeon to go through, and I pretty much gave up on it. I haven't played it since. I may have to pick back up on that later on. But back to Ocarina of Time, basically you're trying to, save the world. So basically what happens is, as a kid, Link, Ganondorf is trying to take over the kingdom of Hyrule. And basically Link unlocks the gate, the door of time, into the Sacred Realm. He gets the Master Sword. He travels 7 years into the future. And the world's destroyed, pretty much by Ganondorf, except for Kakariko Village, which is literally just next door. That place is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Except, you got the Shadow Temple there, and I find the Shadow Temple worse than the Water Temple myself. The Water Temple, yes, everybody complains about the Water Temple, but my biggest thing about the Water Temple is you easily can get lost. It's so long and tedious. That's my biggest gripe about the Water Temple. The Water Temple's not bad. It's those aspects of it that you sometimes can get lost to try to find that one last key. And then, it's just so long to go through. You just want it to be over. And that's pretty much Skyward Sword. The entirety of it. I like Skyward Sword, but the entirety of the game and the dungeons, oh my goodness, they're so long. But anyways, I find the Shadow Temple more, it's not challenging. I just hate Bongo Bongo. That boss gave me the run for my money, and it irritated me so bad. I died so many times, could not figure it out. Yes, I know I have to use the Lens of Truth, but man, those hands get you pretty fast. You have to be quick with the bow and arrows with him. But, you finally get this showdown to Ganondorf, and that showdown with Ganondorf, epic. Just an epic battle with him, and it's just, you play basically laser ball tennis. You can even use the jar to pat that thing back. It's like, somebody messed up here. You shouldn't be able to use a jar to hit a electric orb coming towards you. That's just messed up. But Ganondorf goes down, and then next thing the castle crumbles, and you fight Ganon himself, the beast form of him. You send him packing pretty much and defeat him, and Link saves the day. But this is where Ocarina of Time becomes a problem, because Ocarina of Time is where the timeline splits into 3 separate timelines. You have one where there's the child era. Basically, Link goes back into time to basically relive his childhood, but you still got to deal with Ganondorf. Somebody messed up in Time World right there. There's, the adult timeline where basically you just, Link is sit back, but what happens afterwards is the question. That's called the adult timeline. And then there's the timeline where the hero is defeated. So say Link dies in battle with Ganondorf. You have that timeline split. I don't see how that one gets created, to be honest. There's a lot of issues with the timeline of the Zelda series. And that one always boggled my mind a little bit. So say Link does die. I mean, that's a possibility, but, technically you want to be canon and say, let's say Link wins. We don't need that other third timeline of what if he dies? It just doesn't make sense to me on that side of things. I don't mind the timeline split. I don't mind the setup of it. Yeah, there's some plot holes in it and such, but overall, my experience with Ocarina of Time being my first Zelda game, it made me the fan that I am today. But what really made me the fan that I am today, what really hooked, sink, and made me who I am, is Twilight Princess. This game right here is the very game that brought me right back in and became a fan for life. Sorry about the light right there. That's annoying. But this is the game. It's awfully similar to Ocarina of Time, but it's a different story. I say similar because, Hyrule is bigger, but emptier. And it's one of those games that you compare it to. It's a comparison game. And I prefer this one over Ocarina of Time. And mainly because this one right here is the one that stamped the official I'm a Zelda fan to me. And I'll get into this game later because I'm running out of time here for this video. I don't want to go too long. So maybe we'll talk about that in the next video. My take on Twilight Princess, my perspectives on that game. So basically, in conclusion for Ocarina of Time, it's a fantastic game. It's not in my top 3. I'll say that right now. It is not in my top 3. It's actually number 4 in my Zelda title experience. Why is that? Because Ocarina of Time is one of those games that, it's set the standard, it's set, the gameplay style that it is, and it's classic for sure. And you really want to pick up the 3DS version for the polished look. The N64 graphics are dated, but overall, it is a fantastic game. And I will always keep that in my top 5, but not in my top 3. So I'll leave you with that. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care.